Everyone, welcome to Coffee with Arthur, where I waste my beans so you don't have to. And in today's video, I'm going to do a follow-up review of the Olympia Cremina. So I bought the Olympia Cremina in December of 2021, and I'm filming this in September of 2023. It's been about 20 months since I got the Cremina. And you know, when I first got the Cremina, about 3 weeks after testing it, I uploaded a review video that got a lot of views, and you can see it up here if you want. And a lot of people bought it based on my feedback, my review of the Cremina, which I'm very happy about. But was I just experiencing a buyer's high at first? Was I just gushing over this machine too much? Would that feeling kind of fade as time goes on? Well, in this video, I want to share with you the answer. And the answer is, yeah, this machine is overhyped. I'm not really into it anymore. I'm actually looking to sell it now. No, I'm just kidding. Don't spam the comments asking to buy this Cremina. You know, the more I use the Cremina, the more I love it. I love this machine. I love using it every day. It's such a pleasure to use, but it's not without some complaints that I wish Olympia Express would fix. And so in today's video, I'm going to revisit this machine and talk about how my experience with the Cremina has changed over time. I'm going to talk about the negative points I talked about in my original review and how I feel about those now. And then after that, I'm going to share some current complaints I have with the Cremina that I wish would change. Are you ready? Let's get started. Yeah. So how has my relationship changed with the Olympia Cremina? You know, when I first bought this machine, I was really into deeply analyzing my shots. And so I bought a pressure strip so I could check the group head temperature, which gives me some insight onto the water temperature. I also bought a pressure profiling kit so I could see the pressure I was pulling when I was pulling a shot. And now, I don't know if you guys can see here, but the temperature strip is gone and the pressure profiling kit is gone. Now, I do have on here the Smart Espresso Profiler, but that's mainly for you guys when I'm pulling a shot and you guys can actually see what's happening as I'm pulling a shot. I actually don't really pay attention to this. I don't use this when I'm pulling shots for myself. Now, why was that? Well, you know, when I first started, I really wanted to focus deeply and get analytical, trying to figure out how I could make the best shot because I was relying on my knowledge of how to make a good espresso. But as I was using this machine, the tactile feel really grew on me, and now I don't really measure my shots. I know what kind of pressure I'm pulling just by the muscle memory as I'm pulling down the lever. I can kind of tell the general water temperature by looking at how the water comes out of the group head. I've kind of developed the muscle memory so I don't need to analyze things so deeply. I still have a scale though. I haven't been able to eyeball the volume of espresso just by looking at it. And one of the reasons why I stopped becoming analytical and more tactile, more sensory with this is because of just how forgiving this machine is. You know, when I first bought this, I didn't realize how good I had it. You know, since getting this machine, I've gotten a La Pavoni. I've used pump machines before. I wanted to see if I was really missing something here, but this is an incredibly forgiving machine. If you know what you're doing and you know how to pull a good shot, it's really hard to pull a bad shot on this thing. Even if I overstuff the basket, it doesn't jam up too much. I had big problems with that on the Pavoni. With this, I don't really have that. If I've overstuffed the basket or if the grind is too fine, I can adjust the lever and how much force I'm using to still pull out a really good shot. If I see that the water temperature isn't the way that it is, or if it's coming out in a way I wasn't expecting, I can adjust how I use the lever and I get really good results pretty much every time. And so I've stopped being analytical. I'm a lot more tactile, a lot more sensory, and dare I say, zen with this whole process. You know, I still have that analytical side on me, and so I really want to get a decent espresso machine where I can really adjust all those variables. But this is not the machine to do that. You can try to do that, but it breaks the original experience. I feel like the original intent of this machine. Okay, so what about the negative points that I shared in the first video? How have those stood up over time? Well, let's first talk about the boiler size. So in the original video, I said I felt the boiler was kind of small, and I felt like I was having to refill the boiler every 4 or 5 shots. And now, what about now? Well, actually, I've learned a lot of tips on how to conserve water use on here, so I can pull out a good 10 shots on this before I need to change. And for me, that's changing the water every 3 days or so, and that's not really a problem for me because you know, I want fresh water in here. I don't want the water to go stagnant in here. And so I don't really have a problem changing the boiler every 2 or 3 days. That actually makes me feel better. Now, what about the drip tray? I talked about how the drip tray gets full in my previous video really quickly with my workflow then, and I had a hard time pulling it out without spilling it. But now, like I said, I've learned how to conserve water on here. In order to heat up the group head, I don't need to pull the lever all the way. I can just pull it halfway, and I can let the water cycle through the group head and heat it up. Now, of course, I want to flush and purge when I'm first starting or when I'm done, but I don't really need to use very much water for that. Now, what about the capacity of the group head? Now, I've seen in Lance Hedrick's review of the Cremina, shout out to Lance, thank you so much for talking about me, for sharing my channel, I really appreciate it. I got a huge subscriber boost because of it. I saw in his review that the group head capacity was kind of small, so it was really hard to pull out enough water to make a full shot. Now, in my experience, I've never really felt that before because, I mean, I guess if you're doing turbo shots and you're doing 1:3, 1:4 ratios, it could be difficult, but the group head size, the portafilter size is pretty small. It's 49 millimeters. So on average, I'm pulling out between 15 and 17 grams of coffee, 17 grams for light roast at a time. And so I'm really just gonna have to pull out 34 grams or 40 grams of output, even 50 grams. And that's actually not that difficult to do on this machine. Now, if you follow the manufacturer's instructions on how to pull a shot, you lift the lever, wait for some drops to come out, and then you pull down. It's gonna be tough to get the yield that you want. I mean, this will probably max out at 30, I think, at 28, maybe if you're going down that route. But when I'm pulling light roast and I want to get that longer extraction, I don't actually do that. I actually got some inspiration from Claudio Santoro's video on how to pull light roast on the Cremina. The link to the video is down here. And in that, what you do is you pull down the lever till you get to about 2 to 3 bars of resistance, and you let about 2 to 3 grams of coffee espresso fall through, and then you just raise the lever again slowly and you pull down, and I can easily get 50 grams out in that. So that's not really a big problem for me. Now, of course, if you pull up too hard, you can unsettle the puck. There's a possible issue with that, but I haven't noticed any negative effects on my my puck prep that way. I haven't noticed any negative effects on my extraction that way. Now, one of the other negative points I talked about is how the group head gets really hot and this part gets really hot, so it's very easy to burn yourself on here. And you know, that was just because I wasn't used to using this machine. But I gotta tell you, when I got a Pavoni, this machine felt so much cooler to the touch. There was one time I accidentally got my finger on the boiler. Holy crap, that was a whole different level to this. I'm so happy we have the housing, we have the casing here to protect it. And even though this gets really hot and this gets really hot, it's nothing compared to a Pavoni. So once you get used to using this machine, you're not really going to be burning your fingers very much. You don't have to put your hand on the top and pull a shot. You just really need to hold this right here. And so there's no real issue with that. Now, what about the water level? What about this guy right here? Well, can you actually, I don't know if you guys can see that here. All right, can you guys see what the water level is here? Well, you can't because it's full, so you can't even see the line here. But in the previous video, I talked about how the water level was really hard to see. So I had to pour some in, check, pour some more in, check, pour some more in, check. And now, what about now? Well, I actually learned that if you stand back a bit and you extend your arm and kind of look at the water level from a distance, it's actually quite easy to see the water level. So I no longer pour and check, pour and check. I stand at a distance, keep an extended arm out, and as I'm pouring, I'm able to look. So that's not really much of an issue. Now, if your only source of light is from the top, like let's say you're in a room with no windows, it might be difficult to see, but if you have a window and there's light coming in from outside, it should be no problem to see. Of course, it's not as easy as what's on a Pavoni or on other espresso machines. So overall, pretty much all of the negative points I had in my first review are gone. With some regular use and getting used to how this machine works, they're really non-issues anymore. But there are still a couple things that really bother me. And one of those is, I don't think you guys can see it here. I'm just gonna turn it here for you. But on the head up here, you know, I have the Smart Espresso profile, so these nuts are come from Gabor's lab. But on the back, you can see I don't have the original piston rod. I don't have the circlips in here because the circlips bothered me so much. The circlips are so small and so flimsy, and when I took them off to put in the SEP or the PPK, they got warped and they wouldn't go back. It was really a big headache. And actually, I was sharing about how much I disliked the circlips, and someone from a Facebook Olympia Cremina group, they actually sent me these screw-on lever pins. These are really great. Now, of course, they get loose and I have to screw them sometimes, just like now, but they're pretty nice. It's very convenient. And the other gripe that I have is that this machine takes 15 minutes to heat up. Now, I know that's kind of like a small gripe because some of the larger prosumer machines take 30 minutes to heat up, like a commercial machine will take an hour to heat up. And so 15 minutes isn't that long in comparison, but with an HX machine or one of those smaller appliance machines, those heat up really fast. You know, I was at my parents' house and they have a Breville Bambino Plus there. And that thing, you just push the button and in less than a minute, in like 20 seconds, it's heated up, it's ready to go. It was really convenient. And so when I was over at my parents' house and I just felt suddenly, I just wanted to try an espresso. I wanted to make an espresso. I could do that, but there have been multiple times when my wife is having guests over and they want me to make them a coffee, or in the middle of the day I'm thinking, oh, I could use a pick-me-up, I want another coffee. Well, then I have to turn this guy on and then I have to wait 15 minutes. And so a lot of people are expecting a coffee to come out really soon after you say you'll get them a coffee, but I have to wait 15 minutes with prep time, maybe 20 minutes total. And that's really the least convenient thing I have about this. Now, it doesn't affect my everyday life because I wake up, I turn on the machine, I do other things to wake up, and then I have my espresso. But when I want something in the spur of the moment, it does take a little bit of time. Aside from those two gripes, I love this machine and I love it more and more the more I use it. I feel like I get to know this machine, how to pull better shots on it. I'm learning new things every time I try something. I still have that same excitement for making espresso that I did when I first got this machine. Now, I know this is not the perfect machine for everyone. If you want the ultimate convenience, if you want to just get good espresso easy without thinking too deeply about it, this is definitely not the machine for you. Now, I live in a small house in the greater Tokyo area where space is a premium, and this is the perfect size for me. One of the reasons I love this is just how small and how capable this machine is. And now, before I share my current workflow with the Olympia Cremina, I want to ask you guys, for those of you who have had a Cremina for a while, how has your experience changed? What do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? Please share it in the comment box below. And while you're writing your comment, let me share my workflow on how I get great espresso on this pretty much every time. So basically what I do is I grind the coffee, do WDTA, and I tamp it down, make sure that that's fine. But when I pull up the lever, I wait a few seconds while the coffee slowly starts to saturate the puck. And before drops start to come down, I slowly pull the lever down to about 2 to 3 bars of pressure, of resistance, and I let the coffee drip down. Now, if I'm doing a darker roast, a medium roast, I'll do probably 1 or 2 grams coming through at that level. If it's a light roast, I'll probably do 3 grams or something like that. And then once I've hit my target weight, I start to increase the pressure slowly. Now, this is the key. You don't want to increase the pressure too suddenly. If you do that, you're going to create a bottleneck and it's not going to come out. It's going to be more prone to puck breaking and to channeling. So I really go slowly, trying to get as high as I can. And about halfway through my target weight, so in the case of maybe pulling a 30-gram shot, at the 15-gram mark, at about 6 or 7 or 8 bars, and I hold it there for a few seconds until I go from about 15 grams to 18, 19, or 20 grams. And when I get into the last third of the extraction, that's when I start to release the pressure and I start to let the pressure slowly go down. So I have a nice curve going through. Now, I don't know if this will work for every coffee. This has just been my experience. If you have another pressure profile that you like to use, please share in the comments. Let's share some ideas. We don't have the decent forum where you can share recipes. You know, I really wish we had something like that for the Cremina, but it's really just not the machine for that. So please share your recipes below and let's share knowledge for people who are interested in getting a Cremina, for people who are struggling with the Cremina, because it is a pretty steep learning curve. But if you put in the effort, you don't give up, and you really try to work with the machine, man, it's a great experience. Anyways, that's it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to get more content like this, please subscribe or like this video so that more people can see it. In the next video, I'm going to put out some more dialing in videos, and I'm going to go into group head maintenance that you should do on this machine every quarter or so. I'm going to do a step-by-step video on that. So please check it out.